So our first talk today is Daniel Fosbery of Fosbery Studio, a Q&A with Helen Ankers of Dark magazine.
Good morning, everybody. Today I'm joined, as Andy just said, with Daniel Fosbery. He's a product designer that's been working with decorative lighting for over 12 years, originally establishing the brand Copper and Silk, and today working under his own studio, Fosbery Studio, which aims to use the finest materials that they can, and with the designs being aimed to be cherished for years to come, I guess. So today we're going to consider the importance of sustainability in design and how product designers satisfy the needs of their clients, respond to changing tastes and fashions, while aiming to be respectful of the Earth's resources. So Daniel, for you, what does it mean to design in a sustainable way, and how do you try to implement this on a day-to-day?
Yeah, I think sustainability is more about less about energy efficiency and more about the long-term use of the material. So, if we could make something now and yet still be able to use those materials at a later date to make something new, then obviously that's sustainable. I learned recently that copper has only been 12% of the resources. World's resources have only been used to date since we've been manufacturing copper. And to date, most of that is still in circulation. So it's actually seen as a sustainable element, which surprised me because I thought with the fact that you're mining something out of the earth, which obviously isn't going to be replenished, that would be negative. But because we recycle it so frequently and because it's such a good material to recycle, it's infinite in its recyclability, that can continue. So I tend to use materials that I know can be recycled over and over again, and I try to use the minimum amount of materials in my designs.
Okay.
And that way, when it does come to an end use, it can be taken down into its core components, recycled, and then remade, rather than complicated little bits everywhere.
Yeah. And do you think that's an important element for product design, that we need to try and move away from things? Obviously, everybody's obsessed with plastics at the moment, and using materials like that. Obviously, it is a great product, great material to work with product-wise. But do you think, as product designers, you need to really focus on the materials that you're working with?
Yeah, I think plastic isn't necessarily a bad material. I think plastic is very innovative, and we're doing more and more all the time to work out ways of making it easier to recycle.
Yeah.
I think the problem with plastics is that it's so cheap when you make large scale, and so the massive produced items, which are quite throwaway, kind of ride on gimmicks or trends, they tend to be the ones that we kind of buy quickly, buy for cheap, and then discard very quickly as well. And they're the ones that really are to blame. The plastic itself.
Yeah. It's not.
If we thought about it, really, those more throwaway items, maybe they'd be better if they were using more throwaway materials. I don't know. You know, if it's going to have 2-year lifespan, maybe a material that wasn't based on oil and could be discarded more responsibly, that would probably be a better way of doing it.
Do you think there's an element of re-educating the public and clients, and sort of us changing the way that we shop and changing the way that we specify product? Do you think there's a bit that we need to consider?
I think being designers, we're in a position to be able to control a lot of what happens. I don't think it's fair to say the public should know, because all that happens is the public then ask us to develop. I mean, what's happening now with plastics is that we're all saying we don't want throwaway plastics in our vegetables and our fruit, and yet the shops are still giving us it.
Yeah.
So really, as designers, we should be dictating that a little bit more.
Yeah.
We have the responsibility. We can control things a little bit more than what we do.
Yeah. Okay. And when you begin a new lighting collection, then what are your main considerations in terms of how it's produced, the materials that you use, and does sustainability and respecting Earth's resources play a massive part in that, or is it other factors?
It's still the design.
Yeah.
It still comes with an original concept. I'm trying to create something new and interesting, and I have new ideas all the time. And sometimes that'll be from a new material, sometimes it'll be from a new technique I've seen used, sometimes it's from new technology, and I want to try and incorporate that. So that still comes first. But when I start to manufacture it, because my studio is so small, we design, we build, we assemble, we test, we distribute. Yeah. So every chain of that is important to us personally. So when we do start to work out the actual construction of the light, we do try and keep it simple. If we can assemble it easily, it tends to mean it can be disassembled easily. I work in luxury, which is a very fortunate place to be, because I can afford to give my clients very good materials like solid brass and know that that can be used again later on to be recycled. I think it's harder for the mass produce, but I think they've got a much bigger team behind them, so there's a lot more heads to think of solutions. So yeah, I still work with concept, but at the end there's a thought.
So what about the longevity of product design and having these products that are going to stay around and stay in circulation for a long time? Is that something that you aim to do, or is there an element of it's only going to have so much of a shelf life, and how do you get that balance? Because obviously you need to keep producing product to stay in business.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of an unwritten thing that we all design beautiful products to sell for the market, but we all know really we are designing something that will eventually be discarded or not in fashion anymore, and that gives us work for the following year.
Yeah.
If we just design one light and that'll be it, then we wouldn't have any market to work with. I try and design my lights so they are really unique items, that they are well made, that they last a long time. My hope would be that they may be discarded or taken down from their interior because they're not fashionable, but they won't be thrown away because of the actual core elements and the actual quality that is in there. They may just be used somewhere else, or they may go into salvage, and then we see what we've got now. A new life
in it then,
and it comes back. So that's kind of how I try and be sustainable.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're open to your lights being discarded in what you're saying in a way. We don't often hear designers talk about their designs in this way. Do you think this is a sceptical outlook or helpful to designing better products?
I don't think it's sceptical. A bit of a cynic, but we have to accept we're designing new products all the time. We're going to be designing something that's going to be replaced. I think that there's actually a lot of thought now behind the fact that things have to be recycled. There's the WE Directive, which is waste electrical equipment, and that started 2012, and that was all focused on the fact that the waste stream from lighting and electrical goods was the fastest growing waste stream in Europe. It was just going into landfill, and a lot of that equipment is full of quite dangerous materials, expensive materials, and so this directive was brought in. And then actually in 2019, it's now open scope that all lighting, including household lighting, has to be, all lighting producers, resellers, importers have to sign up to this so they can, for free for the client, recycle the goods. And I think that's interesting because what that's doing is it's putting it's forcing the industry to start looking at how to recycle their goods, which I think will actually start to create an interesting aesthetic. I think we might start seeing things more component-based. We might see, large parts of material separated, and that could create something very interesting. Today, the take-up of the WE Directive is quite low. The UK don't really recycle a lot of the goods, even though there is this directive in place. The little little rubbish bin with a cross through it suggests that you should be able to recycle this for free, paid for by the producer. But we don't really use it at the moment. But I think that will change as time goes on.
And it's not something we discussed previously, but it's just come to me. When you're talking to other product designers and stuff, do you get ideas on how you can sort of work in a more ethical, more sustainable way, or what do fellow designers that you speak to regularly also think about it all?
A lot of designers I use, I'm envious of, because a lot of the friends I use, they use wood, and that's obviously nicely sustainable. That's quite easy. I envy them. I tend to use brass, but now I've found out that thing about the copper.
Feel a bit better.
It feels so much better because it's really nagging me. So yeah, that's the sort of we do talk about it. I'm interested to know whether we will start to recycle in-house more.
Yeah.
I recently took a whole bunch of old billets and old turned parts of brass down to the scrap heap, and that paid for a nice night out for the studio. And if we are going to start taking in our own products back later and say to clients, don't throw it away.
Yeah.
When you're finished with it, call this number, we'll collect it, we'll bring it back, and we'll either refurbish it for you
Yeah.
if it's broken or damaged or needs parts replacing, or maybe we just recycle it and it will pay for its collection in its own right, because the materials we're using are valuable, recycled.
Okay. And going back to specifically lighting, obviously the growing use of LED in product, it was initially introduced more of an energy efficiency thing, but if used, as we discussed earlier, if used in the right way, it can also be quite a sustainable way of lighting. Do you think the lighting sector is already then working quite sustainably, and if they are, how can we take this a step further in your opinion?
I think directives like the WE directive is more applicable to sustainability. LEDs are efficient. That's about the use once the light's in there. I think LEDs, they're kind of a dark art at the moment. Some LEDs are incredibly sustainable and efficient. There's other LEDs that just use the fact that they're LED to make you think that they're energy efficient.
Yeah.
But when you get into it, the components, the construction of the LED itself is so complicated that I'd question, from birth to death, how sustainable they actually are.
Right.
As part of the WE directive, they've looked into retrofit LEDs lamps. They've said that they need about 10 years to develop a proper way of recycling those.
Yeah.
There's rare earth in them, which is such a small quantity that they don't worry about at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still something that we have to pull out the earth,
and
then we're disposing of. If we start disposing of thousands of them, there's little bits all over the place that we could have really collected at an earlier stage.
Mm-hmm.
So I think LEDs. I don't think LED on the top means good.
Yeah.
I don't think it's environmental. I think we have to be careful, and I think the moulded LED lights, the lights that have everything built in around them, if the LED breaks or the colours start discolouring, then does that mean the whole light gets thrown away?
Mm-hmm.
That seems daft. I mean, the old day of taking out a piece of glass with a filament in it that lit and replacing it with something else, that almost to me seems better than a complicated electronic piece that then gets thrown away in its entirety and it has to be stripped.
Yeah. So it's something that we really need to consider, isn't it? I guess as we move.
I think with the WE thing as well, I think that is going to be more focused. I think LED retrofit or built-in lamps are going to be more examined more closely, and I think we might see again those being compartmentalised and having to be able to take apart are much easier, because you're going to start costing the manufacturers money.
Yeah.
So they're going to need to find an easier way of doing it.
Okay. And I'm just going to round up now because I'm conscious of time. But just to close the talk, how do you, in your personal opinion, feel we should move forward so that you can maintain a business but still have a guilt-free conscience?
Yeah, I'm not an expert. I mean, as I said, I justify my design practice because we're luxury, because I make such small amount of products.
Yeah.
They're so well made that they don't break, they last a long time. They hopefully will be seen as antiques or be reused at a later date when the fashion comes back round again.
Yeah.
And I think that's one way for my side of the sector, the industry to work.
Personally.
I think everyone else, like I said, I think probably focus on the ease of recycling, and maybe these big organisations will start to collect their items back and recycle them and reuse them. The technology changes, but that's only normally circuit boards and small parts. Can we not just replace the inners and keep using the outers? I don't know. We have to see what happens.
Yeah. Watch this space.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for listening, everybody.
Thank you.